निवासिनि विष्णु विलासिनि जिष्णुनुते.
So yeah, Desai Deepak said that he likes Noam Chomsky. He's beginning to like Noam Chomsky, and he's wondering that why Noam Chomsky, who has such great on-point criticism of USA, why does he then have such wrong views of Hindus in terms of Kashmir, etc. And that I need to push back on and early as possible, so that most people who have not heard of Noam Chomsky or have not heard Noam Chomsky's arguments, I don't want people on the Hindutva side or people on the Desai Deepak fan wing side to now suddenly fall in love with Noam Chomsky, because I have grown up listening to Noam Chomsky's name and ideas all my life, and I have been brought up in a leftist environment. So I know the problems with those arguments, I think, better than Desai Deepak, dare I say. But I'll try to argue where Desai Deepak is wrong on that, and because for that I will also react to a video of an interview of Noam Chomsky with the person called Patrick Bet-David, who runs the channel called Valutainment, who is a free market conservative type of a podcast. Mainly it started out with business advice and motivational speech, etc. Now he does great podcasts with different kinds of people, leftists, progressives, liberals, conservatives, all sorts of things. And he had brought on Noam Chomsky, and where you will find that Noam Chomsky says most things which are wrong, which are just sugar coated in great English grammar and flowery language. Now a lot of people have problem with flowery languages itself, that because some people have a problem with flowery language because some other people get so influenced by someone's ideas just because that idea was said in a flowery language. Now I don't personally have a problem with flowery language. If it's just flowery language, then it's a different issue. But remember that some people saying that Desai Deepak's word decoloniality, post-colonialism is sirf confusing jargon hai, etc. I don't know where in life can you have a conversation without jargon. You are always going to use terminology. ये terminology तुम्हें ज़्यादा नया लगा या कठिन लगा तो इसका मतलब jargon use करना गलत है. That cannot be an argument. And also, other than that, flowery language is also not inherently bad, because based on the kind of movies, books and stuff you consume, your vocabulary will be different. Your choice of words will be different. Now, I understand that Noam Chomsky, Jordan Peterson, these people are very verbose. They use a lot of extra words to describe something a lot simpler. But Noam Chomsky and Karl Marx, they say absolutely dumb, hilariously stupid things beyond common sense to people on the ground level, lower middle class and lower class, etc. Which, if explained to them, they would know that, yeah, it's absolutely stupid. But because there's a great overlay of rhetoric on Noam Chomsky and Karl Marx's ideas, that's why the lower middle class or the lower class is easily fooled into becoming communism supporters, etc. Now coming to Desai Deepak's love for Noam Chomsky, we will debunk that. But before that, let's just remember that Noam Chomsky is a Jew who also hates Israel and supports Palestine, even though keeping Palestine under their boot is probably what's keeping Israel safe. Because why should Israel give Palestine the same chances that India has been giving to Pakistan? Especially because Desai Deepak, until even a few months back, said that the only acceptable Pakistan is a Pakistan that's reduced to the status of Palestine. Now that same Desai Deepak unfortunately has fallen in love with Noam Chomsky's idea, at least, which we will get to. But Noam Chomsky's criticisms of USA are also pretty baseless, and you will see that in an interview with Patrick Bet-David, where a bunch of Noam Chomsky's supporters have come in the comment section and were saying that how stupid Patrick Bet-David came off across in the interview. I'm specifically choosing this interview because here they are saying that Patrick Bet-David absolutely lost the debate. But what I'll show to you is that Patrick Bet-David was just being nice because Noam Chomsky is about 100 years old. He was just being nice to an old man. He was not losing the debate. Noam Chomsky was making absolutely crazy bullcrap points wrapped in nice language.
Taught at MIT for 60 years. That's what my guest did today, Mr. Noam Chomsky, who also has written over 150 books. He's a famed American linguist. Some call him the father of modern linguists. He's a philosopher, cognitive scientist, historian, social critic, political activist. And with that being said, Professor Noam, thank you so much for being a guest on Valutainment.
Glad to be with you.
So I got a lot of different notes, and I'm trying to see what angle to take with you, but I'll get right into it. If you don't mind taking a moment, and for the few viewers that maybe don't know you, there's a lot of interesting ways people describe you. You're described as the, aligning with anarcho-syndicalism and libertarian socialism. Can you just give us an idea about what some of your beliefs philosophically, politically, and economically are?
There was classical liberalism came to grief because it was undermined by the rise of capitalism. But the basic ideas of classical liberalism, namely that
Okay, just a clarification once again that J. Sai Deepak said that his criticism of USA is so great, then why is his criticism of Hinduism, India so wrong when it comes to Kashmir and Pakistan, India, etc. Okay, and for the reason for that is that his criticisms of USA is also pretty wrong, and I think J. Sai Deepak doesn't fully understand his criticisms of USA because J. Sai Deepak has not spent a lot of time understanding the American conservative viewpoint. I think J. Sai Deepak is making the same mistake when it comes to USA, which Noam Chomsky is making, or a lot of American conservatives are making when it comes to India. These people, all these people, while commenting on another country's politics, they are listening to only the liberals and leftists of that country. Okay, J. Sai Deepak is listening to Noam Chomsky's criticism of USA and therefore thinking, yeah, it's such a great argument. And when American conservatives talk about India, Hinduism, all they can say is a caste system. Today I was seeing Eric Weinstein's wife on Dave Rubin's podcast. She says India used to be such a great secular country. अब हिंदू फंडामेंटलिस्ट आके गड्ढे में डाल दिया देश. Okay, Eric Weinstein is one of the biggest opposers of the woke culture, and even his wife, who is on that side of the conversation these days, even that woman who grew up in India, when it comes to India's Hindutva politics, trusts the leftist sources. So stop trusting leftist sources, I'm saying to everyone, from J. Sai Deepak to Eric Weinstein's wife, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, everyone. All of these people, when it comes to criticizing the other country or talking about the other country, all of a sudden New York Times, NDTV becomes the source. Okay, that should not be the case. Listen to both sides, and I have listened to both sides from 2016, and I can refute any of Noam Chomsky or random SFI's criticisms of USA.
people should be not subjected to the domination of masters, should be free to determine their own fate, should be work together in association to make a better world. All of this remained, but outside the framework of mainstream ideology. And libertarian socialism is the standard term in Europe for what is here sometimes called anarchism, which tried to realize.
Okay, first and foremost, Noam Chomsky identifies as an anarcho-syndicalist. Okay, there are anarchists on both sides. There are leftist anarchists and right-wing anarchists, which is anarcho-capitalism, which is the libertarian kind of anarchism, which says that there's no need for government, and there's so much a lack of need for governance that government is so unimportant that the market can run everything and everyone can just become a part of the market and function as a freelancer or a service provider or a business owner. You don't need a government to meddle in any of these things, and whatever roads and stuff that needs to be built, every state to state or city to city can come together on a neighborhood basis and do what's good for them. There are different pros and cons of these arguments, and the leftist anarchist idea is that the state is inherently bad, the market is inherently bad, only good thing is the unions, okay, trade unions, etc. And we as Indians know what trade unions have gotten us, especially in West Bengal. We know the result of trade unionism, and Noam Chomsky is a follower, is a believer of that. He is an anarcho-syndicalist. He believes in syndicates running. Okay. Nina is saying Chomsky is similar to Tharoor in some ways. His talking points were, yes, this is exactly what we discussed in our today's membership video. No, these are post-colonial people though. These are Marxist post-colonialists who will say that yes, state is bad, capitalism is bad, British colonization was bad. Uske pehla kya tha? Wo bhi bad. Okay, let's continue.
The ideas of the Enlightenment and classical liberalism, basically the idea that authority and domination are not self-justifying. They have to justify themselves. And if they can't, which is usually the case, they should be dismantled in terms of more free and participatory societies. So the great 19th century theorist of classical liberalism, John Stuart Mill, held that in industry and the economy generally, the natural form to which a civilized society should develop is self-management by associations of workers in production, by people in community, and so on, without any arbitrary hegemonic authority.
Got it. So, almost all of us who create our own set of beliefs, whether it's spiritual, political, philosophical, economical, there's somebody that influenced us, whether it's, hey, I read von Mises. Oh my gosh, great stuff. I'm a capitalist. I read Ayn Rand. I totally get why I'm more like a libertarian. Or I read Karl Marx. The guy's got some good arguments when you think about what's being done. Who were some of the folks that influenced you the most?
Actually, the people who influenced me the most are people whose names will never be known, people on the front lines of the struggles for justice and for freedom.
Okay, this is an important point that deserves to be debunked. He is asked a serious question, but a humble, nice softball question, that who were your heroes, who inspired you? Okay, and he uses that question to give off basically a virtue signaling answer. What is virtue signaling? There is something technical called signal theory, wherein you are doing something to only be appreciated for coming across as doing that thing, even though you are actually doing that thing or not. That is signal theory. You are just signaling that I'm saying or I am that way. Okay, and therefore that the extension of that is virtue signaling. Now यहाँ पे virtue signaling क्या होता है? Patrick Bet-Dewitt is asking that who are your heroes? हमारा Noam Chomsky says that I didn't need influencers or heroes. My heroes, my inspirations are people whose names will never be known. Okay, that is such an absolutely crap and disingenuous and unimportant answer. It's not unimportant, I'm talking about it, but I don't want to give any gali. That's why I'm having a little bit of trouble choosing my words. But these are absolute bullcrap answers. Okay, how can nameless people, how can people you don't know inspire you? Who motivated Noam Chomsky for the first time to write a book, or come up with this idea, or come up with the name anarcho-syndicalism or something, or come up with anything he has come up? Did he imagine, okay, there were some unknown faces creating the pyramid of Egypt? That person has really made me inspired to write this book. Okay, that never works. Some person or a group of persons who did something great definitely encourage you and inspire you to take up any endeavor you want. But Noam Chomsky, being a leftist, and a leftist being full of virtue signaling and not real work, being that, Noam Chomsky does exactly that. And this is why we need to be very careful about J. Sai Deepak finding respect for Noam Chomsky. He does not give a correct or a sane answer. He gives a virtue signaling answer. मुझे किसी का ज़रूरत नहीं था. I was inspired by faceless people who did great things, whose names we'll never know. What kind of this is movie dialogue or what?
Take, say, the American for justice and for freedom. Take, say, the American civil rights movement. If you ask about the civil rights movement, the name that comes to mind is Martin Luther King, who was a great figure. Highly respect him. But he would have been the first to tell you that he was riding on a groundswell that was prepared by others.
Yes, he's right here, but that was not his question. Now he's associating a parallel fact to justify his previous statement. He's saying, yes, see, even Martin Luther King Jr. would have himself said that he is not the sole prime mover of that entire civil rights movement. There was a giant groundswell as well who propelled him on the wave. नहीं, मगर inspire किसने किया? Okay, who inspired anyone to talk about Martin Luther King or to go to join civil rights later? Martin Luther King himself? or before Martin Luther King, who inspired those people? Some other people? Jesus or some local pastor? Everyone got inspired in that chain of events by some person or the other. Noam Chomsky wants to prove that he is so above all these things that he is not inspired by any person or their achievements. He is inspired by the unnamed, the faceless people who are part of any mass undertaking.
Snake workers, whose names you don't know, who were riding freedom buses in Alabama to try to encourage black farmers to dare to go to vote in the face of lynch mobs and brutal sheriffs and so on. Many of them suffered, some were killed. Those are the kind of people who I think we should respect and honor. We rarely even know their names. And there are people like that all over the world. Much of what they do is very inspiring. I can't find any higher inspiration than that.
What books maybe, and that was very helpful to share that because it makes me think, but what books did you read as a young man coming up? Because it seems like a lot of your
Nina, Justice and Freedom.
philosophy was established very early on. And I know, you know, in one of your books, you talk about how you grew up as a center leftist, more on like the FDR political type of a range where you were with your family. But what books were they when you read and you said, this just makes a lot of sense? Why aren't people understanding this? Were there any books that impacted you?
So many that I can't list them, but ranging across the spectrum.
Yeah, now when it comes to books, he says that there are so many books, I can't name them. He could have said the same thing in terms of the human personalities as well, but he thought that was beneath him. Books maybe, well, okay, there are so many unwritten books which have inspired me.
So ranging from when I was a young teenager, from Bertrand Russell's History of Philosophy to pamphlets by uneducated workers, people with peasants without formal education in Spain during the anarchist revolution, who recorded what they were doing to collectivize their own villages and take control of their lives. Things that I was picking up in anarchist bookstores in 4th Avenue, New York, where I used to go as a young teenager. So a whole range of things.
Got it. Who were you in high school? If you and I were 16 years old in high school together, I'm sitting next to you, I go to school with you for 2 years, who would have people said who Noam was at 16, 17 years old?
So see the basic tone of the interview so far, which will go on basically. Patrick Bet-David is trying to be a nice guy, nice host, nice interviewer to a man who is very old. He keeps so far giving cool dialogues, and then later he will go on to disrespecting and deliberately using words that are nothing but deliberately disrespectful. They are not they cannot be justified as just simply making an argument. He will make points with words which are definitely meant to disrespect people or the host in this case.
In high school?
In high school. Who were you in high school?
In high school, I was sort of a loner, had a couple of friends. Some of them remained friends till the end of their lives, just a couple of years ago. But not many. Mostly I kept to myself, and I was involved in lots of intensive political activities in a different area. Most of my own engagements, direct engagements at the time, had to do with what was then the Zionist movement. Now it would be called anti-Zionist.
Yeah. Here is the first giveaway, okay?
With what was then
check
the
out
Zionist
that
movement. Now it would be called.
He was part of a group of people who are Jews, but they are against the state of Israel, okay? Judaism rejects Zionism. These are the kinds of people who you see in the cities of India. You know that there are many Hindus who reject Hindutva, right? This is that. Noam Chomsky is part of that kind of thinking and that kind of cabal, whose criticism of USA has impressed Deepak. But that should not be our goal, and that should not be a reference point. Then you can say that enemy's enemy is my friend, etc. But see, and you can criticize me for agreeing with so many points with American conservatives, okay? So why should I criticize you for agreeing with a lot of American leftists? Because first and foremost, let's just ignore the fact that there are currently overlaps and similarity in problems that are being faced by American conservatives, European conservatives, and Indian conservatives, and Israel. Okay, wo chhod do. Even if that is not the case, you must remember that conservatives of everywhere want their country to remain intact, and they want what's best for their country. At least they think what's best for their country, etc., because they are mainly nationalists. Leftists everywhere are against their country, and they have an innate disposition to hating their country right from their academic school, college and graduation, post-graduation, PhD life, right up to when they become a teacher and write books or become talk show hosts. Okay, so when you are aligning yourself or listening to a leftist for the criticisms of that country, you are most probably, more often than not, listening to complete lies or fallacies. And how should you know that? Listen to the leftists of your own country. If the leftists of your own country can be so wrong on India and Hinduism, why do you think the American leftists are so intelligent, insanely great and brilliant that their criticisms of US is all of a sudden absolutely correct? How is that going to be possible? So, the better option is that you listen to American conservatives, you listen to American leftists, if you really want to follow American politics, that is. If you don't care about American politics, it's fine. But if you really want to draw conclusions on USA, listen to both sides and then see what their problems are. And you'll very easily see the things that even the American conservatives end up getting wrong. And there are huge differences in the opinions of American conservatives as well. The conservative establishment, the Republican establishment, they did not want Donald Trump to win. Okay, Donald Trump is an anti-war president. He did the Abraham Accords. In any other world, he would have gotten a Nobel Peace Prize. The only reason he did not get a Nobel Peace Prize by Nobel Peace Prize standards is because he is white. Okay, so you don't have to agree completely with American conservatives, but listen to their opinion in order to really find out about the country. Just as you would want, as a pro-Hindutva person, for people outside India to find out about India. Would you want non-Indians to find out about India from Arundhati Roy? Then, if you don't want that, it's absolutely wrong of anyone to understand USA from the mouth of Noam Chomsky.
Called anti-Zionist. And this is before the State of Israel was formed.
Yes, Anushka Tyagi. Chomsky is a self-loathing Jew. Exactly.
We're talking about the early 40s. And I was involved with groups that were working towards developing a binational Arab-Jewish cooperative community.
Binational Arab-Jewish coalition. See how naive he is? This should be the first giveaway. Any person who thinks there can be a binational agreement or a peace agreement between Arabs and Jews, especially back in those days. Okay, now Trump has done it with his power, etc., with his who knows what deals he has made. He's talking about just ground up, just friendliness between Israel and the Arab world. What naive world does he live in? Which is why you should understand that he is just another self-hating Jew. Just like a Hindu in India does not think that Hinduism or Hindus are threat at all. In the same way, Noam Chomsky does not seem to be aware of the possible harms that Israel is in, surrounded by enemies all around, each and every side. Israel has enemies, and he's talking about a bilateral partnership between Arabs and Israel,
based on working class cooperation between Palestinian and Jewish workers. That ideal, bits and pieces of it were realized, but most of it changed radically.
Okay, SRS is making an important point here. He's saying that J. Sai Deepak did not say he likes Chomsky. He just replied to a question that with which leftist would you agree with? Okay, if he had just said that he is a leftist with whom I have some agreements, that would have been fine. You can have agreements with almost everyone on earth, which is why newspaper, magazines ka zodiac sign, everyone who reads a zodiac sign in the morning, they feel like yes, it's absolutely about them. But if you read all the other signs and advices for that day and the predictions for that day, you will see that yes, even those seem to be applying to you. because those are written with general predictions, with general what's bound to happen in someone's life anyway. Okay, so I would not have a problem with Desai Deepak if he said that yes, he's just a leftist with whom I have some agreements. I have a problem with Desai Deepak saying, or anyone saying, that Noam Chomsky's criticism of USA needs to be taken seriously, and then also being surprised at why doesn't he then understand the Hindu point of view or the Indian point of view when it comes to Kashmir and Pakistan. It is for the same reason. Because he's so wrong on USA, therefore he's also wrong on India and Hindutva as well. Even Eric Weinstein's wife, I was shocked. She says Hindu fundamentalism हो रहा है इंडिया में, cow murders, cow lynchings, ये सब बोल रही है वो.
1948, but that was the main activities I was in then, and in many ways still am. That's lasted through my life. And if you ask about influences, a lot of the people who influenced me were people writing at that time in Hebrew. People like great essayist Ahad Noam, who was committed to a form of what he called cultural Zionism, a Zionist recreation of a cultural center in Palestine, which would reinvigorate Jewish culture for the entire diaspora, and who wrote eloquently, in fact, that the incoming settlers will have to pay attention to the fact, they can't ignore the fact, that this country is settled by Palestinians. We're going to live with them. We're going to deal with them on an equal basis. We have to be integrated with them into the world that we're creating. That's the turn of the century, 1900.
So you've been a true believer for a very, very long time. A true believer, very long time in your philosophy.
Okay, some important points have come here. Ninad is saying, haha, he is like those Indians who want peace with Pakistan. Yes, he is absolutely like those people. Then Binay Singh is saying that did Chomsky plagiarize Abhinav Gupta? His idea on language seems very similar to Abhinav Gupta philosophy. Might have been.
Can you remember when it was when your philosophies were core to the point where nobody could change your mind on certain set of philosophies that you had?
I've never reached that point. But we should always be open-minded, willing to listen to new ideas and arguments.
Right.
But my own, I wouldn't even...
Okay. What he's saying is factually correct. I don't know if he follows it, but he seems to say a nice and correct thing that you should always have an open mind. So, ये कैसा ओपन माइंड है जो कि 90 सालों से लेफ्टिस्ट ही रह गया, एंड ये कैसा ओपन माइंड है जो कि इजराइल का समस्या ना समझ पाया, ये कैसा ओपन माइंड है हु डज नॉट अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इंडियाज प्रॉब्लम इज विद पाकिस्तान और व्हाट कश्मीर्स हिस्ट्री इज विद पाकिस्तान. ओके, ये है ओपन माइंड का नमूना.
Call it a philosophy. My own general points of view about the nature of life were formed as early as I can remember. Early child. I grew up in the Depression, so there was really deep poverty. My own family elsewhere, and those scenes stay with me. Miserable people coming to the door trying to sell rags, something like that. These are indelible memories, and I've now seen it all over the world. That's the kind of place I gravitate to, whether it's in southern Colombia or eastern Turkey or refugee camps in Lebanon or many other places where we've gone. Or right here in the United States. You don't have to go very far to see it.
Most of the world has only seen that in movies. You watch the movies, and the only way you can get a depiction of what happened in the Great...
Okay, now he's talking about the Great Depression era.
Depression. Let me go watch a movie, and then maybe I'll get an idea of it. I mean, I was born and raised in Iran, and I lived there for 10 years, and the war happened between Iran and Iraq. I remember it clearly. And then going to Germany, living at a refugee camp for a couple of years, and seeing what that was.
The interviewer here is an Iranian immigrant he's a Christian Iranian immigrant to USA. He served in the US Air Force. He was not born here. He is now an American conservative patriot, etc. Now listen to what Noam Chomsky says when Patrick Bet-David says that the country gave me these opportunities, etc. Listen to Noam Chomsky's criticism of that.
It was like a small little camp we had, and then finally coming to the States. So living in Iran, I grew up watching folks going across the street, protesting, flagellating their backs with a streak of blood on the ground, screaming out death upon America. I witnessed that as a kid for 10 years. Obviously not from the day I was born, say from 4 years.
Okay. Aniket Gautam is saying Bernie Sanders or George Soros wali baat kar raha hai. Yes, everyone. When it comes to Kashmir and India, sabko New York Times pasand hai.
5 years old, earliest memories, you would see that. And as a kid, that kind of leaves a mark, kind of like what you saw on the Great Depression side. But there was also another community that loved America and wanted to come to America for the freedoms it offered. Everybody, I think, has a different definition of what America means to them. What does America mean to you?
Means many different things, ranging from some of the worst crimes in human history, like the most vicious system of slavery that was ever created.
Okay, now the fun part begins, where I'll have lots of chances to refute Noam Chomsky. But first, let's check out Anushka Tyagi's comment here. She's saying that I think Desai Deepak agrees with Chomsky on self-managed and self-sustaining community units and shit like that. Because I remember Desai Deepak talked about self-regulating and self-sustaining temple village community ecosystem, and for that there's no way, no absolute reason there is to listen to a communist for that. A communist agrees with that for reasons which will not let us have that in India. Communists don't believe in the need for a temple. Communists don't believe in God. Communists hate the idea of God, religion, temple, everything. So the reason why they need a self-sustaining situation, etc., association, syndicate, etc., that is completely different from why we want those things. It's not even for the same things. Okay, Marx and leftists have come up with these ideas because they are inherently jealous and have a skewed and have an inherently a negative view of everything. That's Michel Foucault's view as well, but that everything is based on power, etc. There's no such thing called competence or love in the world. There's only power and power dominance, etc. We did not have a temple economy for those reasons. We had it for completely different reasons, and therefore is just because there's an overlap, I don't have to show any respect to Noam Chomsky or his views.
Which still, its legacy is very much with it, including the virtual extermination.
हाँ, तो यूएसए के बारे में पैट्रिक बेट डेविड ने डायरेक्टली पूछा पॉइंट ब्लैंक, तो हिज फर्स्ट रिप्लाई इज ऑब्वियसली दैट स्लेवरी इतना ज़्यादा हो गया यूएसए में. ओके,
What does America mean to you?
Means many different things, ranging from some of the worst crimes in human history, like the most vicious system of slavery.
Okay, most vicious system of slavery USA का है, that is not the case. Okay, Romanis and Indians who were taken away in Hindu Kush, across the Hindu Kush mountains, who still populate large parts of Arabia, Middle East, etc., West Asia. Okay, people whose ancestry can't even be traced to India, maybe only except with DNA tests. Okay, African Americans to this date know that they are from Africa at least. Okay, they have a way to use that as an excuse, etc. Yemenis can't even say that. They might look like a random kirana store owner in Mumbai, but there's no conversation today even possible regarding the Indians who were taken away as slaves, because of the number of slaves who were taken away from India and all the things that happened to them. Not to mention that even the Romanis had a genocide against them from Hitler, and even Jews did not speak up about it, etc. Lots of problems. So anyway, सारा का सारा स्लेवरी प्रॉब्लम यूएसए का ही है, उसके अलावा किसी ने स्लेवरी नहीं किया, और किया भी तो बहुत थोड़ा कम स्लेवरी किया. दैट इज एन एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग आर्ग्यूमेंट. एंड इवन in Roman courts, there are records of discussions between them about Caucasian white slaves from other parts of Europe, and they are saying that we don't want these slaves because they are so stupid and you can't even train them properly. That's a conversation going on in a Roman court, okay, about other white slaves. Okay, so slavery was there everywhere, especially Hindus. More importantly, if today I say that no, see, Hindus were taken away as slaves by Muslims, what will Noam Chomsky's reply be then? Is he going to support me? He's not going to, because he's disingenuous, he's dishonest, he's part of a cult with full of echoes all around him. So I won't buy his argument of America's slavery being the biggest problem of humanity. And remember, most black people were sold off as slaves by other black tribes who captured them in local wars, then sold them off to the local white businessmen who came on their shores.
That was ever created, which still, its legacy is very much with it, including the virtual extermination of the indigenous population at one extreme, at the other extreme, breaking new barriers in popular democracy, developing the concept of we the people, which was a revolutionary concept in the 18th century, moving on to protecting freedom of speech to a degree that's unknown elsewhere. So a mixture of extreme.
Okay. Freedom of speech, जो कि कहीं पे नहीं हुआ है. This is the point just made by Noam Chomsky. And why is that? What else is significantly an American thing which is not there anywhere else? That is their gun right. Okay, gun right है, इसलिए उतना freedom of speech possible हुआ है अमेरिका में. You can't look at these things in isolation. Like Bernie Sanders says that the richest most prosperous country in the world, उसमें इतना कम सैलरी का है. अरे वो richest prosperous है क्योंकि तुम्हारा बात किसी ने नहीं सुना 200 सालों से, इसलिए. तो you can't appreciate one thing and then discard the thing that which led that thing to happen. Okay, अगर गन राइट्स नहीं रहता यूएसए में तो फ्री स्पीच भी नहीं रहता. कोई ना कोई क्रिमिनल आके किसी ना किसी को हर वक्त गोली से उड़ा देता क्योंकि उसके पास गन नहीं रहता लीगली, और उसने उसको गुस्सा दिला दिया. A polite society is an armed society, an armed society is a polite society. वो एक मजेदार स्लोगन है, but it's true.
Extreme horrors and exciting achievements.
Which achievements to you would you say are some of the best achievements America's had as a nation?
The pioneering from the 18th century of mass public democracy. It's been a struggle all the way. The founding fathers were strongly opposed to it. The Constitution is an aristocratic doctrine which seeks to marginalize the general public. But then come constant struggles, constant all through the years, to try to provide some real meaning to the concept we the people. When I talked about snake workers in Alabama, that's one kind of contribution. When you talk about young people from the Sunrise Movement occupying congressional offices today to try to get Congress to move towards taking steps that will save the human species from self-destruction, that's another kind of step. So you see these things all the way through history. If you like, it's a kind of sharp class war being fought constantly. And you have both sides. It's not contradictions, they're opposing forces. And that's the course of history. So you can see horrors. Iran is a case in point. You can take a look at the memoirs of General Robert Heuser, who was dispatched by President Carter to carry out a military coup in Iran in 1979. You can see the blurb by Zbigniew Brzezinski, Carter's national security advisor, who says, yes, this vindicates him. If a military coup had been carried out, maybe killing who knows how many people, we could have maintained the rule of the Shah, who the U.S. imposed in 1953, overthrowing Iran's parliamentary democracy. So you can see that. You can see other things.
Yeah, I mean that was so. You were not supportive of what Carter did to not help the Shah at a time where they kept saying it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right, and then obviously there was a fall of the Shah. You supported the Shah, meaning you would have liked it to stay the way it was.
That's a different question. Once he was ousted, the question is, how should he be treated? I felt, despite his enormous crimes, and they were terrible, he should be treated humanely. But that's a separate question from the Carter-Brzezinski plan to carry out a military coup. Actually, this was described openly by Israel's de facto ambassador to Iran, who publicly announced in 1979 that Israel had very close relations with the Shah, that what's needed in Iran is a bloody military coup which may kill 10,000 people, but that will suppress the uprising and restore the tyrannical rule of the Shah. That's what they had in mind. Well, I'm opposed to that, but I'm in favor of treating the tyrant humanely once he was ousted.
Interesting. I mean, if you study it a little bit deeper, I'm from there, so I put a little bit more time into that specific topic. It was also the 25-year contract, the oil between France, Germany, UK, and I'm sure you're aware of this with US, where they were not happy about the fact that the Shah was about to raise the prices. And 1979 was a specific year when the prices was going to go up. So they had a private meeting in...
Okay, Nina is saying Americans can't go 2 minutes without saying freedom. Yes, but that's mainly what American conservatives say. Leftists don't say that. Leftists hate their country, no. SRS is saying that JSI can't have agreement with Noam because he is a free market and entrepreneurship guy, JSI Deepak. I think Sai only wants to use his anti-imperial criticism of USA, but after Trump, some Republicans have become isolationist. Most Republicans have become isolationist, which is why most Republicans today are supporters of Donald Trump. Okay, don't forget that. But what I'm saying is that why do I need Noam Chomsky's criticisms of USA when they are definitely bound to be wrong in the same way that leftists of India get the criticisms of India wrong? I have many criticisms of the Indian government. I have criticisms of Indian society. I don't need Arundhati Roy for that. Isn't it? You are trusting a person to criticize USA honestly. Okay? And you should not do that when it comes to a leftist.
South or Central America to figure out a way to make this strategy was for nations wanting to make sure he didn't stay in power the way he did. So it was extremely strategic, but it's interesting to see the fact that you still want the individual to be treated in a humane way. You know, if I read some of your books, like if I read Who Rules the World, the book that you wrote, Who Rules the World, if I watch your documentary, if I watch some of our interviews, if I go watch you and William Buckley have a debate, if I go watch any of the stuff that you've done a lot of work, your catalog of work is very wide and very deep. I don't get the most positive feeling about America. Almost, if I had someone who was not an individual who had spent a lot of time wanting to study the history of America, say I have 50 students here and I have 50 students here, neither one of them have ever studied the history of America. If I gave them your material to read and study for a year, I'm willing to bet most of them after you would probably hate America. You know, a lot of the things that I read, it doesn't come across as there is that love of what a great country America is. For you, and you make a lot of good arguments in your books. I'm watching to see what your points are on this. Okay, this makes sense. I see where he's going with this. Do you still, maybe it's not even still, do you think America has or is ever been the greatest country in the world?
There's no such concept as the greatest country in the world.
Communism ने अपना मास्क उतार दिया है, ठीक है? Communist ने, okay. He's not a communist. He's a leftist. He's not even a Marxist apparently. But there is no such thing as the greatest country. This should be the first precaution against anyone outside in USA listening to him for critiques of American society. A person who does not even believe in the concept of a great country or greatest country, वो क्या criticize करेगा, वो क्या good faith में argue करेगा, converse करेगा, वो झूठ ही बोलेगा, वो cherry pick ही करेगा, वो nitpick ही करेगा, वो statistical fallacy ही निकालेगा. और है तो लेफ्टिस्ट, statistical fallacy इनका bread and butter है.
Just as there's no greatest human being in the world, countries have many complex characters.
See, greatest country नहीं है, क्यों? क्योंकि greatest human being नहीं है कोई. We don't know who's the greatest human being much because we have not thought about it much, but greatest country is a very easily answerable question. Greatest country does not mean the most perfect possible utopia that you can possibly imagine in your mind. Greatest country sentence का मतलब है कि आज के दिन में सबसे ज़्यादा सेफ्टी, सबसे ज़्यादा इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी, सबसे ज़्यादा लाइफस्टाइल ऑप्शंस एट्सेट्रा, चॉइसेस, फ्रीडम्स, लिबर्टी, हेल्थ केयर, ये सब मिला के तोल मोल करके सबसे अच्छा कहाँ है, कौन सा जगह है, ये था प्रश्न. ये प्रश्न के उत्तर देने में इसने फिर से नोम चॉम्स्की ने फिर से फिल्मों के डायलॉग देने चालू कर दिए. उसके मुंह से नहीं निकलेगा कि USA might be the greatest country on earth or any other country. If he would have made the case, I would have been fine with it. But he's saying there is no such thing called there's a greatest country on earth. Okay, then you know what's the obvious argument. This is the argument also leftists make that, oh, let me tell you guys this funny story. A few days back I had this argument with a leftist friend of the family. He's very old. He served in the Indian Air Force. He's retired now. So he was saying that leftist Marxism is great, etc. Real Marxism has not been tried, etc. All those arguments. Karl Marx never got anything wrong. It's the people who don't get things wrong. So he has a deity-like fascination with Karl Marx. He's saying that everyone gets Marxism wrong, but Karl Marx was right. Okay, fine. So at one point he asked me to give me examples that where has Marxism failed. First he was arguing even on that point. So I said Soviet Union, Venezuela, Cuba, West Bengal, everywhere, all those places names I started giving out. He suddenly says, Cuba? What's the problem with Cuba? And then of course Cuba's healthcare system is propagated so vociferously by leftists. So I said that, see, Cubans build rafts, fake makeshift boats, or swim to USA, to run to USA. Okay, if their healthcare system is so great, why are they leaving so desperately their country and going to USA? The day Americans swim to Cuba, I'll understand that Cuba is a better country. Even to this date, most people go to America, no? Contrary to what Noam Chomsky thinks of America. The day most Americans start leaving their country and go to settle in other countries, I'll understand that, okay, some other country is also doing great. Until that happens, Noam Chomsky needs to be listened to with a grain of salt, because he fails to even grasp with the concept that there can be something called the greatest country on earth.
Characteristics, some of them very outstanding, wonderful, others hideous. So take some other country. Let's take Germany. Some of the greatest thinkers, scientists, artists in the world.
Yeah, see, this is Abrahamic absolutism at work. He is saying that yes, there are good factors of all countries, there are bad factors of all countries. Even when Nazism was going on, there were good things going on in Germany. So why can't he say that? As I said, greatest does not mean the most perfect thing. Greatest means जो बाकी जो competition है बाकी देशों के जो हाल है उनसे better है कि नहीं. That is the definition of greatest. And a linguist does not understand the meaning of what does the word greatest mean. How am I supposed to trust this person for anything?
The depths of human history as well. What's more, it flips quickly from one to the other. You just can't make comments like that.
You just can't make comments like that. You just can't say that any country is greatest. Okay? A linguist is saying this. तो greatest word ही हटा देते हैं. तो greatest तो कभी भी कोई भी कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता है greatest. तो greatest word आया क्यों हमारे जिंदगी में? greatest word को ही बंद कर दो यूज करना. ठीक है? ग्रेटेस्ट क्यों नहीं बोलेगा? क्योंकि लेफ्टिस्ट को हायरार्की नहीं पसंद है, क्योंकि उसको सब कुछ में 100% इक्वलिटी चाहिए, 100% एफर्ट होना हो, 100% इक्वलिटी चाहिए. हायरार्की गलत है, इसलिए ग्रेटेस्ट वर्ड भी गलत है. पीपल शुड नॉट मेक सच कमेंट्स. दिस इज द स्टेटमेंट ही इज मेकिंग. That is so dishonest and disingenuous and unethical.
1920s, Germany was regarded as the peak of European civilization. And the sciences, philosophy, the arts was regarded as a model of democracy. The 1930s, 10 years later, was regarded as the depths of human history. 10 years.
हाँ, तो 10 years later में क्या हुआ, वो क्यों आर्ग्यूमेंट हो रहा है? बोल रहे हैं कि 10 years पहले जर्मनी में जो इतना अच्छा काम हो रहा था 10 years बाद वो नहीं रहा. तो तुमको कौन 10 years पहले या 10 years अगले में क्या कौन सा ग्रेटेस्ट कंट्री रहेगा उसको वो बोलने को बोल रहा है? पैट्रिक बेडेविड नोम चॉम्स्की को पूछ रहा है कि आज 2023 में कौन सा ग्रेटेस्ट कंट्री है. वो बोलने के चक्कर में इतना फालतू का बात कर दिया.
Later, beginning of a return to what it once was. So what's Germany? What's England? England has an absolutely hideous record of atrocities and destruction for centuries. Iran, in fact, is a case in point. We know a lot about it. But Iran could have moved in the early 20th century towards democracy and freedom. The British crushed it when Iran tried to take control of its own energy resources.
Okay, he's giving examples of all countries who were great at one point, then they stopped being great, or while being great they had flaws as well. इसलिए greatest country ही नहीं हो सकता है.
The early 50s, Britain tried to crush it by force. When they were unable to, they asked the big guy across the Atlantic to come in and smash it for them. Okay, that's one side of Britain.
Let's get to the next point.
Adam Smith and Dave, my famous figure dancer. Just too many things. Periodic rallies.
So would you be able to say, 60 years you've given to MIT, most of your life you've lived in America, you've been all over the world. Would you be able to say, I love my country, America?
I don't love countries. Love is a relationship between people. When you love countries, there's something wrong.
Okay, you can't love your country because love usually happens between people. again, a linguist apparently doesn't understand basic English grammar. Loving your country is not an abstract concept. Loving your country means the things or the people, systems, cultures inside your country. Can't you love a culture? Can't you love a culture because of the people inside that culture? Can't you love anything other than humans? What kind of a statement is this that you can't love countries, love only happens between people? A linguist, one of the greatest linguists of mankind ever, is saying such hilariously stupid, meaningless things just because he's a leftist.
Should you have loved?
And he has been, I think, appreciated so much as a leftist only because the academia was propagating him so much that he's the greatest. If he was a conservative and he had the same views on linguistics, I don't think he would have gotten so much fame.
Loved Germany when it was carrying out the Holocaust.
There, again Germany. हर कुछ में नाजिज्म आता है. फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट नाजिज्म से शुरू, नाजिज्म से खत्म. एक बार भी अभी तक स्टालिनिज्म का तो नाम उच्चारण नहीं किया.
People, don't.
You can't love countries, you can love people. What bullshit, what meaningless statement is that?
No.
When you love your country, there's something wrong with you. You can't love the people inside your country.
Should you have loved Germany when it was carrying out the Holocaust?
अरे जर्मनी का कौन बात कर रहा है? ये घूम फिर के नाजिज्म का एक एग्जांपल कैसे आ रहा है? नोम चॉम्स्की को किसी ने पूछा कि नाजी जर्मनी कंट्री अच्छा लगता है कि नहीं? उसको पूछा गया 2023 का यूएसए अच्छा लगता है कि नहीं? This is the same argument that people who hate vegans give. Every time you have a debate with anti-vegans, they will say that no, you can't ask an Eskimo to be vegan. Oh no, if you were stranded on a deserted island, you can't ask him to be vegan. Oh, you can't expect a rickshaw puller to eat tofu. अरे रिक्शा पुलर को कौन बोल रहा है? एस्किमो को कौन बोल रहा है? आइलैंड में स्टैंड होके तू मुझको फेसबुक पे रिप्लाई दे रहा है? मैं तुझे बोल रहा हूँ. This is the same bullshit mental gymnastics that Noam Chomsky is doing. We are not talking about Nazi Germany. Patrick Bet-David, an American, is asking Noam Chomsky, another American, about America of 2023. इसको example देना है Nazi Germany का, just to use it as a straw man.
You have loved Germany when it was at the peak of human civilization. You care for people and the societies in which they live.
अच्छा, अब आ गया universalism पे. Okay, again a classic Marxist flaw. So no country can be or no even culture can be especially good or peculiarly good or distinctively good. Okay, ह्यूमैनिटी का जो अच्छाई है वो यूनिवर्सली है हर जगह में. हर कल्चर अच्छा है, मल्टीकल्चरलिज्म आर्ग्यूमेंट. हर देश अपने तरह से अच्छा है एक्सेट्रा. और हर लोग अच्छे हैं, सब कोई अच्छे हैं. And therefore there can be no such thing as loving your country or the greatest country on earth. Culture, अरे तो even if you love American culture, then you love America only. How is he differentiating between these two things?
Should you have loved Germany when it was at the peak of human civilization in which they live? I care for many societies, including this one, but you don't love countries. At least I don't think you should.
I don't think you should love countries. You should love people, whatever that sentence means.
I think there's an emotional connection sometimes with certain set of values that one nation.
There, Patrick Bet-David immediately clarifies that some people can have an emotional connection with the values, and those values means loving that country which are espousing those values.
Offers to you where the other one where you grew up and didn't. It's almost like I wasn't born here. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I can never run to be the president here, or maybe I can be governor or something like that, but this is not really where I was born. But this country welcomed me with open arms and gave me an incredible life. And to compare it to where I was raised at, I mean, the worst day in America is still 10 times better than the best day in Iran. So that's what I mean, where maybe for you had some kind of a love for the country that, gave you the opportunity to become.
The country didn't give you the opportunity. Certain people within the country gave.
Okay, now the leftist bullcrap again begins. Okay, listen very carefully here.
Had some kind of a love for the country that, gave you the opportunity to become.
The country didn't give you the opportunity.
The country didn't give you any opportunity. Certain people gave you an opportunity. First of all, that sentence again doesn't make sense grammatically. The country is the people. Every time I say the country does this, the country does good, the country does bad, It is the people of that country. What's the big cool thing that he seems to think he is saying? Then when he's saying that USA has done bad things, when he's criticizing that part of USA, then why isn't he saying that the country didn't do bad things, it was certain people who did bad things. When it comes to the good of the country, certain people were good, not the country. You see how much similar this is with Indian Hindu leftists. Anything bad is inherently Hindu, and therefore Hinduism should be blamed for all those things, casteism, sati, etc. But whatever the good things, that's some good people somewhere did those things. That has nothing to do with Hinduism. That is the exact same line of thinking that Noam Chomsky is making, and therefore I cannot trust him on anything, especially when it comes to his criticisms of USA.
Certain people within the country gave you the opportunity while preventing others, victims of our own crimes, from having that opportunity. They gave you the opportunity because you were a refugee from a country that was an official enemy. Okay,
what does that sentence mean? They were giving Patrick Bet-David an opportunity because he was a refugee from an enemy country. तो इसमें country का कोई credit नहीं है. किसका credit है? और उसके पहले वो भी बोल दिया कि तुमको जो अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया गया वो अपॉर्चुनिटी किसी और से छीना गया. इट्स ऑलवेज अ जीरो सम गेम which is a classic Marxist leftist economics fallacy which has been proven wrong countless times in every society that concept has been applied. Economics is not a zero sum game because there is basic inflation always, because there's a reserve bank, they always print more money. When people consensually join an economic agreement, everyone becomes better off because of that. No one is losing money for working more, unless they are in a socialist or communist country. But leftists always think that in order for someone to become richer, someone needs to become poorer, and that is never the case.
That's what they did. Take me. My parents fled from Eastern Europe, horrible conditions, and did manage to get to the United States. And they managed to create a good life for themselves, an even better one for me.
How? And first and foremost, which is the easiest argument that you can have against any leftist, is that America is not inherently good. There are some people who are good, etc. America is not the greatest country also. America is not a good country. You can't love your country. तो भाई तुम्हारे माँ बाप क्यों यूएसए गए? पाकिस्तान क्यों नहीं गए थे? हाँ, सऊदी अरेबिया क्यों नहीं गए? ईरान क्यों नहीं गए? इराक नहीं क्यों नहीं गए? क्या डिफरेंस है वहाँ पे और यूएसए में? यूएसए ही क्यों जाना पड़ा सबको? व्हाइट सुप्रीमेसिस्ट रेसिस्ट स्ट्रक्चर है इसलिए जाना पड़ा, कैपिटलिज्म ऑप्रेसिव है इसलिए जाना पड़ा यूएसए. किसने बुलाया था यूएसए में?
Okay. On the other hand, a couple of years after they fled from Europe, they happened to make it just before the First World War. 2 years later, in 1924, the United States passed a law, immigration law of 1924, which was aimed particularly at Jews and Italians. I'm Jewish. The idea was to keep Jews and Italians away from the country because they were not up to, we don't want that kind of rabble.
Yes. Here's a legitimate criticism of inherently racist laws, that they said that no, we don't want so many Jewish people in our country, okay? फिर भी तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स को जाने का इच्छा यूएसए में ही क्यों हुआ? सऊदी अरेबिया क्यों नहीं गए? In this case, they are coming to USA then saying that no, it was a bit racist, it was not as equal as God would have intended it to be. But that is the starting point of USA कि अच्छा चलो अच्छा जिंदगी मिलेगा, फिर थोड़ा रेसिज्म हैंडल करना पड़ेगा. बाकी देशों में जा ही नहीं रहे हो रेसिज्म के डर से. वो क्रिटिसिज्म और क्रेडिट यहाँ लेफ्टिस्ट से कहीं जिंदगी में कभी नहीं मिलेगा. And that is the case when they discuss India and Hinduism as well.
Well, that helped put most of my extended family into gas chambers. Okay, they couldn't come here because they were barred in the 1930s. Jewish refugees continued to be barred, virtually, if you were let in the late 40s when they were still in concentration camps. But then victims of massive U.S. atrocities were being kept out right at this moment. They're being driven away from.
Okay. Massive atrocities are going on, and the USA is not letting a lot of people enter the country. Again, the argument has to be made that why are those people who are not being allowed in USA wanting to come to USA? Why aren't they going to any seemingly less racist country than USA? Okay? What is magically wrong with those countries where they are not wanting to go? जाओ अर्जेंटीना में जाके रहो, ब्राजील में जाओ, कौन रोक रहा है? ब्राजील और अर्जेंटीना रोक रहा है?
From the border when they flee from refuge from horrors that we created from the 80s. Okay, so it's a very mixed.
This is why it's important to counter woke and communists and leftists of all over the country, because these are the same arguments which Indian leftists will learn from Noam Chomsky and apply to India in terms of illegal immigration from Bangladesh and Pakistan. Which is why I say there is an overlap between American conservatives and Indian conservatives. Why should I ignore and turn a blind eye to where I can see definite overlaps and points of alliance?
Story. Sure, I'm glad to have been able to come to the richest country in the world with.
Oh sure, I was glad to come to the richest country. Sure, random है वो richest country is not that big of a deal. I came it just हाँ थोड़ा rich है, थोड़ा पैसा वैसा मिलेगा. See how casually he thinks, see how casually he mentions the biggest actual point that which brought his parents to the country. And why was USA the richest country? वो rich कैसे बन रहा था? Because of the atrocities you keep mentioning. तो एट्रोसिटीज़ करने के वजह से जो बेनिफिट मिला वो बेनिफिट भी चाहिए, और वो एट्रोसिटी के खिलाफ बात करते करते यूएसए अच्छा कंट्री नहीं है ये भी बोलते फिरेंगे एक ही साथ. नो अमेरिकन हैज़ द राइट टू से दीज थिंग्स. आई कैन से दिस बिकॉज आई एम इन इंडिया, because I don't reap the benefits of USA's atrocities.
Advantages that don't exist anywhere else, thanks to the extermination and expulsion of the native population. So yes, for me that's very good. Does that mean I love the country? No.
10 मिनट बैठ के यूएसए ने क्या क्या अच्छा काम किया पूरे दुनिया में उसके जिंदगी में ये बोला, अब अंत में आके बोला कि does that mean loving the country? No, that cannot mean that.
I admire some things within it. I think we should despise other things within it. And the same.
Yes, admire some things and despise other things. Greatest बोल काहे नहीं पाया फिर? ग्रेटेस्ट में बोलते कि हाँ एडमिरेशन का चीज़ सबसे ज़्यादा जिस कंट्री में है, हो सकता है उसका कुछ क्रिटिसाइज करने का भी चीज़ हो, मगर मोस्ट एडमायरेबल थिंग्स आर इन एनी एक्स कंट्री एंड दैट कंट्री इज द ग्रेटेस्ट. ये काहे नहीं बोल पाया? क्योंकि उसका एब्राहमिक रिजिडिटी मोनोथेइज्म का है. ठीक है कि नहीं, ग्रेटेस्ट मतलब यूटोपिया, ग्रेटेस्ट मतलब द परफेक्ट गॉड, द गॉड हेड जीसस क्राइस्ट जैसा कोई होना है देश को, तभी जाके वो ग्रेटेस्ट कंट्री है, नहीं तो ग्रेटेस्ट नहीं है.
Same is true of every other country.
Would you call yourself a pessimist or a optimist?
Well, when asked that, I always appeal to the slogan that Antonio Gramsci made famous. We should have pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. There's a lot of things that are wrong. That's what we should concentrate on, trying to make them better. And we should be optimistic about the power to do so, no matter what the obstacles.
Yeah, it almost reminds.
Fair enough. Nice, cool sentence. He seems to be, his career seems to be based on cool sentences because he's a linguist after all. But he's respected because of his sheer volume of work also. He has about more than 150 books. So, and because he's a leftist, he's respected in the academia, and therefore if he's leftist in one thing, everything other that he says and does in his life will also be appreciated by the academic mainstream, of course. If as I said, if he was a linguist with the exact same opinions, but he was a conservative, no one would pay him so much heed.
Reminds me of you studied obviously a lot of philosophy. I'm assuming you also studied probably Stoicism with Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and the whole how Stoicism got started. Where prior to it used to be called cynicism, and a couple guys are like, listen.
By the way, Stoicism has an equivalence in India as well in Manusmriti. It's called Jitendriya.
I don't want to be part of the cynicism community. It was a philosophy, and Seneca kind of stepped away and says, I'm just going to go do something else, and then boom, Stoicism got started into what it is today. But it was more of the mindset of I can do something about my life to improve my life. Do you believe the individual has the ability and the control and the responsibility and the ultimate level of accountability to help improve their situation and their lives?
Not just your own life, but to improve the world for all of us.
Sure.
And those are, right now, the most urgent questions that have ever faced the human species. After all, we might not like to think about it, but we have about it a decade or two to answer the question as to whether organized human life will persist on Earth. Nothing less than that. very stark question.
How certain are you of that? To say a decade or two, that's a pretty...
Okay. Noam Chomsky says, in a decade or two, humanity bachega bhi nahi. When Patrick Bet-David says that, how sure are you of that? He says it's a fact. Then he says, how can you say it's a fact? Then Noam Chomsky makes a mental gymnastics jump again that no, in academia, for centuries we have agreed upon that a fact means that you are not absolutely sure. This is what Noam Chomsky says. And since we are not academics, nor is Patrick Bet-David, that may be the case inside the campuses. But what in general people understand when someone says uses the word fact is that it's 100% true. No one should be this dishonest as to using the word fact, and then when pushed on it and to say are you fully sure of it, then suddenly jump and say that no, I don't think there is anything called fact. I think fact means that it might not be true. You're claiming it to be a fact. Then you are also saying that no, it does not have to be completely true. Listen to this hilarious exchange.
Extreme statement to say we only have a decade or two.
Why do I say that?
Yes.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
If we don't deal with the increase of heating the environment, we will reach tipping points which are irreversible. Doesn't mean everybody's going to die tomorrow, but we'll be off on a course which will be unstoppable and will lead to essentially the end of organized human life on Earth, along with millions of other species which we're destroying at the same time. We can't be certain about this, but there's a very high probability of it. In fact, virtual unanimity among scientists that this is what's going to happen unless we take control within the next few decades.
So to say it's a fact, that's a pretty strong statement to say.
ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे एनवायरनमेंट का बात हो रहा है. ठीक है, यूनाइटेड होकर लोगों को तो कुछ करना ही होगा, मगर वही कंट्री कर पाएंगे जिसका इंटरेस्ट आर नॉट अगेंस्ट नेचर बिकॉज ऑफ देयर इनहेरेंट कल्चर, और दोज हु हैव एन इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट टू सेव इट, और दोज हु हैव एन इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट टू नॉट हार्म इट. ये सब में से इंडिया हैज़ द पोटेंशियल टू बी द लीडर. If India does manage to reduce climate change or man-made climate change to a significant extent, will then Noam Chomsky say that yes, India is a great country, or will Indian leftists say that? No, they won't.
It's a fact. Fact means 100% we're going to be there, and
nothing is 100%.
Okay.
Nothing is 100%, but it's a fact. Listen to this for the first time, you stupid people who have not been a part of this academia. Now he will keep on repeating this statement that for hundreds of years, as if Patrick Bet-David is a uneducated person. In that tone, he says that no, this is an obvious fact. For hundreds of years, fact does not mean 100% correct. Listen to this hilarious exchange.
Quantum theory is not 100%. Theory of relativity is not 100%. In the empirical world, you never have certainty.
I'm just saying you said fact. I'm just repeating you said fact. So I think what you're saying, there's a possibility, but not necessarily factual.
Yes, but there's a background understanding since the 17th century.
Since the 17th century. This is the arrogance of academics that people all over the world are standing up against. This is the problem with their tone and their conversation styles, okay? He's saying that ये तो बहुत सालों से चल रहा है, तुमको पता नहीं है? That is what he's basically saying. And he could have said that no, fact is actually considered not an 100% finalized thing in academia. And he could have said just this and not repeat himself 5 times. What he's going to do now? He's going to repeat himself 5 times, 6 times, and keep saying that for centuries it has been accepted in academia. How do you not know that?
That in the world of empirical fact, you never reach certainty. So when we talk about facts, as we do freely, we always mean it with that qualification in the background. We're not going to stop using the word fact. It's a fact that if I take this coffee cup and I let go of it, it's a fact that it'll fall to the ground. But there, in fact, is a very slight possibility that it'll rise to the sky.
Wow. कितना बढ़िया defense है of using the word fact, or claiming that fact does not mean a 100% surety. Because there is apparently a chance that the cup might go upwards. These people will teach Hindus of rituals and superstition.
Okay, happens to be the case. There's a spectrum of possibilities of which the overwhelmingly high probability, so high that there's no need in the practical world to consider anything else, is it'll fall to the ground. But there does happen to be a very minuscule possibility that it might go to the sky. But when we talk about facts, we have that understanding in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I just never seen anything fall up. I've lived 42 years. I've had a hard time seeing. I mean, if things would have gone up and I would have jumped a little higher, I would have been in the NBA today. So I'm hoping that was kind of favoring me, but I couldn't jump more than 15 inches. So I could never go into the NBA. So factually, some of this stuff, maybe I got some work to do on.
Actually, there is, not that you would do it, but it's just one of the things that could happen in the universe. So yes,
could happen in the universe, but that's a could. That's
it could happen, therefore it should be considered inside facts. What is going on here? This man is the most respected linguist in the world. AI engineers look up to him and read his work and incorporate that into our artificial intelligence systems.
It's not a fact though. But to say factually in the next 10.
This is why academics, intellectuals should not be paid too much heed when it comes to real life. And see, Patrick Bet-David is countering a gigantic academic. And what's his education? He's not even a college graduate. He has these basic common senses. He's saying that's a could. Why are you involving the concept of could in the umbrella of facts? Linguist को एक random business owner podcast host समझा रहा है. That is how low academia has fallen. Do you think there was any random businessman in India who could have won a debate with Chanakya or could have said anything remotely as shocking to Chanakya as Patrick Bet-David is doing? Do you think there would have been an audience where there would be a debate between a random business owner and Chanakya, and people would be shocked that how weak Chanakya's arguments are? There has been a general decline in academia itself, objectively.
Could happen in the universe, but that's a could. That's not a fact though. But to say factually in the next 10 or 20 years, that makes somebody sit there and say 2 times 2 is 4. That's a fact. 2 times 2 is not going to be 5 tomorrow. There's a possibility it'll be 5 tomorrow.
A random business owner is explaining to the greatest linguist of all time how English grammar works. This is the situation we are in today.
That puts a lot of fear in some folks who haven't read as much as you have to say. To say the world, we're going in a direction with climate change in 10 or 20 years, that's a scary thought.
No, sorry, that's a misunderstanding.
Sure.
Every empirical fact that you can think of has a possibility of being wrong, whatever it is. That's been understood for centuries.
Yeah, theoretical mathematics का argument कहाँ से आ गया? Look, this is called mental gymnastics. Okay. Let me just see what Ninad is saying. He's saying now he speaks like some of our leftist historians. Yes, why wouldn't he? Our leftist historians are intellectual. वो मानस शिष्य बोलते हैं ना जो. They are that of Noam Chomsky. They worship Noam Chomsky.
That's different. Wrong. Whatever it is, that's been understood for centuries.
Again, for centuries it has been understood. Only you don't understand because you are a stupid podcast host and a business owner capitalist. That's why you don't understand. That's what he's saying.
Sure.
Every empirical fact that you can think of has a possibility of being wrong, whatever it is. That's been understood for centuries.
That's different. That could be your opinion, my opinion, research, who wrote it.
It's not a matter of opinion. By now, modern physics even explains it in some detail. So it doesn't.
Modern physics explains it. अच्छा. कहाँ से शुरू हुआ था conversation के is it a fact that 10-20 years में humanity खत्म हो जाएगा? अब argument जा पहुंचा theoretical physics तक. Theoretical physics और theoretical maths का बात हो रहा है अभी.
I mean, we should stop talking about facts. Of course we should. But we should talk about facts with a recognition, always barely possible, sometimes almost inconceivably small probability that they're wrong. So we continue to talk about.
So he keeps being disrespectful. Patrick Bet-David is not being disrespectful enough of this hilariously stupid point.
So when I say it's a fact that this is going to happen, that means there's an overwhelmingly high probability. And we know the reasons.
I think there's a big difference.
The factors and so on. If you want every statement that's ever made to be added to disqualification, okay, I don't think that's a wise policy. We should continue to talk about facts.
Sure. No, I just think, one of the reasons why we've gotten to where we are in America, this is my opinion. This is not a fact. This is my opinion. I'm very comfortable being wrong. I think one of the reasons why we've gone to where we are today in America, as divisive as we are, is because both sides think everything they believe in is 100% factual. You know, this is coming from a skeptical Christian. This is coming from a guy that grew up an atheist for 25 years. And I'm sitting there debating all these different issues in the Bible. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make, and I'm a math guy. So I understand what you're saying. I appreciate that. But let's go to a different topic here. So let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about capitalism. We have different economical systems in the world. You know, no matter how much I study what you say, you'll take shots at Obama. Then you'll take shots at Bush. Then you'll take shots at Nixon. Then you'll take shots at Carter. Then you'll take shots at Trump. So it's not like you are blindly, no matter what, only defending anybody that is on one side. You're not that. That's not you. You're not a such and such person, such a perfect leader. He can never make a mistake. You don't come from there. That gives you a lot of credibility as a reader.
Yes, here Patrick Bet-David gets something disastrously wrong in his diagnosis of Noam Chomsky, and I want to point out what Nina is saying here. For centuries it has been understood, ye baar baar bol raha hai, and exchange that with it's been written in the holy book. The Abrahamic POV never goes away. Yes, that is what I was saying. Marxism, he says he's not a Marxist, but leftist politics inherently is the fourth Abrahamic faith. That is why they are wrong about everything. That is why their ideas fail, etc. And what does Patrick Bet-David get disastrously wrong here? He says that Noam Chomsky's views have integrity, or Noam Chomsky has integrity because he criticizes all of these US presidents. He's not being a partisan person here. He's not saying that only Republicans are bad or Democrats are bad. What Patrick Bet-David, I don't know why he screwed this up, fails to acknowledge here is that Noam Chomsky is criticizing all those US presidents because none of them are leftist enough for them. This is the same with intellectuals of Bengal. They hated Congress, they hated Buddhadev Bhattacharjee, they hated Jyoti Basu. A lot of them hate Mamata Banerjee as well, because none of them are being leftist enough. Does that mean that intellectual is an integrity wala person? Should I look up to that intellectual from Bengal in terms of politics? No. They will say all of these chief ministers are bad because none of them are leftist enough. That's his argument against all American presidents. So that's why he has even lesser amount of integrity, because he cannot make a value judgment against anything in terms of anything good. He can say something is bad, he can say everything is equal, he cannot say something is good. What a weird and creepy, sick problem. Do you realize that? This is basically degenerate, pervert thinking, a pervert worldview.
Reader to say, I'm actually interested to see what he's thinking about it here. But if we look at economical systems, we got capitalism, we got socialism, we got communism, and then, you know, a couple other things. Marxism would be pretty much the same as socialism, communism, a part of it. What do you think about, like when you think about capitalism, out of all the systems that we've had and the results that capitalism has created, what are your thoughts on capitalism?
Well, first of all, I have a different conception of the various options in the world. You see many different kinds. I see one. Every society that's functioning has some variety of state capitalism. Some elements of capitalism constrained by state power. That's true of the United States, it's true of Britain, it was true of Russia under the so-called communists, that's true of China. We can look at the different variants of state capitalism that exist. I think they all have some advantages, many defects. Now, as far as my discussing Biden, Obama, Bush, and so on, there are two kinds of, we have a finite amount of time and energy. We can decide how to use it. One way to use it is to march in parades, praising the magnificence of our leaders and countries, along with great mass of other.
Now, this is the last point we'll discuss today, because I can't remain online forever and ever. But this is the last criticism I'll make of Noam Chomsky today. Listen to this point. He says, we have very limited amount of time in this country, in this lifetime, so we should not waste our time going to marches where we are appreciating leaders or celebrating the nation, but we should go to protests. Check this point.
Other people, pretty useless activity in my opinion. The other possibility is to see what's wrong with the existing societies. And
only observe what's wrong with the society, and that is the beginning and end of all leftist thinking, arguments, politics, etc. This is the basic problem. What is wrong with a society? सिर्फ वो ही सोचो, कुछ भी सेलिब्रेट मत करो, कुछ भी सेलिब्रेट करने लायक नहीं है, एंड देयरफॉर कुछ भी बचाने लायक नहीं है. सब कुछ हर वक्त सिर्फ चेंज करते रहो, चेंज करते रहो, चेंज करते रहो, प्रोग्रेस करते रहो. जो अभी हुआ है वो अच्छा है कि नहीं, मारो उसको गोली. सिर्फ चेंज करो, प्रोग्रेस करो, नया लाओ कुछ.
Work to try to change them. My feeling is that's where attention and energy should be devoted. So every one of those figures that you mentioned did a lot of things that I think were very wrong, very harmful to others and ourselves. And I think not just them, but the people around them, the social forces that within which they were functioning and so on. So I think the sensible thing to do is look at those and try to improve and change them. If that gives an impression of being negative, yes, it's true. I think we should be negative about things that ought to be changed. If you want to applaud, join the multitudes in the parades and praise what's nice, fine, that's okay. It's not a very worthwhile. You want to do it on July 4th, okay, but not devoting your life to it.
So we should.
A lot of false premises here and straw man arguments here. Okay, first of all, his argument is that you should only criticize things and look for things to change and not celebrate those things. Okay, that is inherently a sick view in my opinion, but that's his opinion, it's my opinion. Opinions pe disagreements ho sakta hai, it's not important. What he says after that is the stupid part here. He says that you should not waste your time celebrating something because that time could be used to change what's wrong. Okay, how do you invest all your life or your day only in observing what's bad and changing that, instead of also celebrating the good things or giving credit where it's due to anyone or any organization or any country, etc. I don't know how that works practically or in a sane mind. But even the bigger problem, what he says is after that. Check out what he says here.
In the parades and praise what's nice, fine, that's okay. It's not a very worthwhile. You want to do it.
It's not a worthwhile thing to do, going into a parade and celebrating something good.
On July 4th, okay.
On July 4th, you can do it if you want to. It's the American Independence Day. That's what he says.
Not devoting your life to it.
So
not devoting your life to it. Here is a straw man. Who devotes their life to just going to parades and celebrating something? No one devotes their life to going to parades. What people might devote their life to is looking at things to celebrate, and that is something unacceptable to Noam Chomsky. There should be only people or people who are only criticizing things. That's the only worthwhile thing according to him. And there again, you see the Abrahamic worldview come into play. That is the only way. Binary bhi gaya gadde mein. Only right way, only true path to follow is to criticize and not celebrate anything. Can you imagine having a life like that? Not celebrating anything good, not giving anyone any credit. That's the life of a leftist. Noam Chomsky is basically unmasking what leftists think in their minds.
So we should emphasize on the wrong work that you do. You're saying, so as a reader, you've written 150 books. So rather than looking at ideas you have in your book that make sense, I, as the reader, should look at the things that's wrong about you.
Patrick Bet-David has made an interesting counter argument that should we do that in terms of your books as well? Now see what he replies.
Not the things you write that's right about you. So that's kind of what you're suggesting.
If you have some special interest in me, say you're my mother, then you should.
Starts off with a disrespect again. He says that, why do you need to take so much interest in me? If are you my mother? If you are that, in that case, it's okay for you to only look at my flaws. Hypocrisy comes out in 2 seconds.
Be interested in the things that I do that I shouldn't be.
He's just not shouting and screaming like I am, or the way Deepak speaks. He's speaking in a very nice, polite tone, but he's saying absolutely disrespectful and horrible things.
Right about you. So that's kind of what you're suggesting.
If you have some special interest in me, say you're my mother, then you should be interested in the things that I do that I shouldn't be doing. Okay. If you care about me,
But if not, I got to constantly be looking.
So if you care about the U.S., if you care about U.S. society, if you don't care about U.S. society, just go march in a parade. If you do.
Look at this tone. If you care about US society, you should not march in any parade celebrating US society. If you care about US society, only criticize US society to improve its flaws. And Ninar, what the point you are making is not exactly countered by Noam Chomsky. He agrees with you in that case. There are people who dedicate their lives to be Andolanjivis like him, right? He's saying that is the path, that is the only path. People should be only Andolanjivis because they need to change things for the better.
You care about U.S. society. Don't care about U.S. society. Just go march in a parade.
Look at this tone. If you don't care about US society, just go march in the parade. If you care about US society, don't do that.
If you do care about U.S. society, you'll take a look at what you think ought to be changed and improved.
If you care about US society, you will only look for things to change. Okay. Here again, the linguist does not get English grammar, I think. तो US society के लिए care कहाँ से आ रहा है? देश प्रेम नहीं है, सब कुछ culture, some people का काम है. Then why do you even care about US society? Care about all societies. Don't march any parade to fix some American problem. Or admit that you don't care about the society, you hate the society, but you still think this problem needs to be addressed. That can be a fair argument. You might be crazy, but that even crazy people can come up with some logical argument. What Noam Chomsky is saying here is not a logical argument. He's saying if you care about a society, only look at what's wrong with it. But up till now, he has said that there's nothing to care about US society.
If you do care about U.S. society, you'll take a look at what you think ought to be changed and improved.
So what you're saying
तो केयर कोई सोसाइटी के लिए आएगा किस बिना पे, किस बेसिस पे कोई केयर करेगा enough to look at its flaws?
is if I'm constantly looking at things that are wrong instead of things that are right, I should, that to me means less celebration, more being critical. So I should spend more time protesting than attending parades.
Not just protesting, trying to change.
Not just protesting, trying to change. तो protesting तो है ही, protest march में भी जाना है, उसके अलावा अभी change करना है, सब कुछ सिर्फ change ही करना है, ठीक है, मगर जो चीज़ change नहीं करना है, according to him, obviously there might be some things that don't need to be changed maybe. Those things do not need to be celebrated. And that is the biggest problem with leftist politics, because they will not conserve anything. Everything will be changed every day, every month.
If you care about the society at all, you'll be concerned with trying to change the things that are wrong, that hamper its development, that hurt the people in it, and that are harming other people in the world. You'll be committed to changing those if you care about the society.
See how many times he says this. If you care about a society, you will do this. How manipulative and sick that is. Nina is making a great point here. This might as well be a Abrahamic religious leader laying out rules for what people are allowed to do, like issuing fatwas. This guy decides what caring about society means for everyone. Yes, he is giving out a fatwa.
If you don't care about the society at all, you can march in parades.
Look at this. If you don't care about a society at all, only then celebrate it.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, I get that. Okay, fine. Let's continue with that. So capitalism, what is, in your opinion, what is wrong with capitalism? Where do you see the flaws and challenges in capitalism, and what will be a better alternative than capitalism?
Well, first of all, since there is no capitalism, almost everything we have is an alternative to it. Everything, in fact. If there were capitalism, it would probably self-destruct within no time. That's why the business world, pretty much in charge, has always invariably called upon state power to protect them from the ravages of the market and to...
Okay. This is kind of right, and there's a bit of a straw man here. First of all, he says that if a society was actually capitalist, which is the anarcho-libertarian and anarcho-capitalist position, that state weight छोड़ो, सिर्फ हम सब लोग अपना खुद में बिजनेस करके सोसाइटी चला लेंगे, अगर वो होता तो it would self-destruct immediately. This is what he is saying. Okay, this is not the opinion of countless anarcho-capitalists, obviously. Milton Friedman would not have said that. Milton Friedman's son, with whom I have actually spoken to in Facebook regarding a libertarian view I had about making roads, etc. in a hypothetical, completely anarcho-capitalist society. He gives replies in Facebook. He's a fun person. David Friedman, his name is. So all those people are absolutely wrong. Anarcho-capitalist society जब होगा, it will self-destruct immediately. This is his argument. मगर इतना बार जब देश प्रेम का बात आ रहा था, तब जब नाजिज्म का बात हो रहा था, तब बार बार he was giving out the examples of Nazism to strawman against any kind of patriotism. Remember, he never gave out any example of Stalinism or Mao. Even now he won't. Anarcho-capitalism जब होगा, तब self-destruct होगा. मार्क्सिज्म जब आता है, कम्युनिज्म जब आता है, तब सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्ट नहीं होता है. सोवियत यूनियन का सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्शन नहीं हुआ, चाइना का सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्शन नहीं हुआ डाओ जिनपिंग के पहले, वेस्ट बंगाल का सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्शन नहीं हुआ, वेनेजुएला क्यूबा का सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्शन नहीं हुआ. वहां पे मैजिक हो गया, वहां पे ऐसे ही वो लोग गरीब रह गए. सारा सेल्फ डिस्ट्रक्शन एनार्को कैपिटलिज्म में होगा. दैट इज हिज आर्गुमेंट.
State power to protect them from the.
And the thing I agree with him here, but there's a straw man here as well. He's saying that big businesses themselves want state intervention so that they are saved from failing. Which he's bringing out the issue of bailouts, which is disagreed upon by libertarians and free market people themselves. तब जो गवर्नमेंट और बिग बिजनेस का करप्शन है, कल्यूजन है, वो काम आता है. द पीपल, द let's say the intellectuals of the anarcho-capitalist side or the capitalist side, they never say that bail those companies out. Even just last month when that Silicon Valley Bank failed, every conservative in the country, in the world said, don't bail that company out. Let the company fail, let those people make a new company. Let the bank fail. They should have faced consequences for their actions. $250,000 तक तो वो पैसा इंश्योर्ड है भी. कोई भी आदमी जिसका वहाँ पे $250,000 से नीचे है या $250,000 तक है, वो बिना पैसे के घर नहीं जाएगा, वो इंश्योर्ड है. उसके ऊपर जिसका पैसा है $500,000 मिलियन डॉलर्स है, उन लोगों को थोड़ा कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फेस करने दो. इवन दे विल मेक बेटर डिसीजंस इन टर्म्स ऑफ बैंक्स. कोई भी कॉन्सिक्वेंस फेस नहीं करेगा तो वो गलती तो फिर से होगा. दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम, बट दैट इज नॉट व्हाट इज प्रोपगेटेड by advocates of capitalism. He's strawmanning again the lowest common denominator to portray the entire thought or movement or people who remotely agree with that idea. Okay, you talk to him about patriotism, he brings in Nazism. You talk to him about free market and capitalism, he brings in government and company collusion and corruption. Ben Shapiro, even up till a few years, he used to repeat himself hoarse, saying that I don't want Barack Obama to bail out those companies. Even then Barack Obama was bailing out those companies. Republicans didn't want companies to be bailed out. People on the capitalism side didn't want companies to be bailed out, banks to be bailed out. The government did that because they are corrupt. Why should my opinions be based on what a corrupt person is doing? Why should every patriot in every country have to limit their voice because Nazism happened? अजीब बात है, especially when you won't bring up Stalinism as a criticism ever of any leftist. This is plain disingenuous and dishonesty. He's a bad faith actor.
Ravages of the market and to subsidize them and to carry them through to the next stage, to develop the next stage of the economy and so on. Why? Let's be quite concrete. We're now using computers, the internet, satellites, microelectronics, so on. Where'd all that come from? Mostly from public investment. You got a vaccination.
Mostly from public investment? You mean the government? So most of the innovation we've had in America came from the government, not from the people?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Of course. I mean, I was at MIT in the 50s and the 60s when most of this was being developed. It was being developed on public funds.
Okay. Again, we have to make that classic counter that, okay, अमेरिकन पब्लिक फंडिंग से सब इनोवेशन हुआ था, कैपिटलिज्म के वजह से नहीं हुआ था, तो बाकी देश में क्यों नहीं हुआ भाई? बाकी देश में भी तो सब कुछ गवर्नमेंट कर रहा था, ठेका लेके रखा था 1991 तक इंडिया में. इंडिया का स्टार्टअप कल्चर कहाँ पे चला गया? Why didn't we innovate anything? Because we are racist, because we are inherently stupid. That has to be the argument then. Anyone who hates capitalism but appreciates America for being a prosperous country are inherently racist, because they are saying that America flourished could have flourished without even capitalism. There is no corruption, it has nothing to do with capitalism. They are prosperous, it has nothing to do with capitalism. तो फिर वो सब चीज़ें इंडिया में क्यों नहीं हुआ? Then the only logical answer is that then Indians are stupid. That's why हम नहीं कर पाए. If capitalism is not a factor here, what is the factor? Like there's a cool slogan that everyone says that America was built on the backs of slavery. अच्छा, slaves ने क्या किया? कॉटन पिक किया. कॉटन फील्ड क्या सिर्फ यूएसए में ही है और कहीं पे कॉटन फील्ड नहीं था? यूएसए बिकेम द हाईएस्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर ऑफ कॉटन ऑफ कोर्स बिकॉज ऑफ स्लेवरी. तो बाकी लोगों को किसने रोक के रखा था? टुडे वी आर द सेकंड हाईएस्ट एक्सपोर्टर ऑफ बीफ एंड बफेलो मीट. तो आवर इकोनॉमी इज बिल्ट ऑन द बैक्स ऑफ बफेलोज. एक चीज सिर्फ कॉटन का एक्सपोर्ट में यूएसए का इतना बढ़ोतरी हो गया, इसलिए सारे के सारे देश पीछे रह गए. Why he just won't give credit where it's due?
So that could be an opinion. That could not be necessarily a fact. That's another thing that could be an opinion because you and I are on a computer right now, invented by this guy named Steve Wozniak.
Well, take a look at computers. They were developed for the risky, creative, hard work was done for decades, either in research universities.
Yeah, but they almost used the entire city's electricity.
Patrick Bet-David gives great counter arguments to a legendary linguist professor.
They had to have massive towers to have a computer because in order to allow the entrepreneur to
lots of electricity, which is coming from public funding overwhelmingly. So yes, if you look back at it at all, most of it just the creative, hard, general work is just.
अरे creative, hard, general work वो बाकी जगह में क्यों possible नहीं हुआ? Indians creative नहीं है. इंडियंस के दिमाग में कोई अच्छा आइडिया नहीं आता है. इंडियन का साइंटिफिक टेम्पर नहीं है. इंडिया में क्यों नहीं हो पाया 1991 से पहले, यूएसए में क्यों हुआ? ये इजी आंसर कोई नहीं देगा, कोई कम्युनिस्ट नहीं देगा.
Done through public engagement. Now you take a look at computers again. In 1977, after about 30 years of development of computers, mostly in the public sector.
Okay, I need to counter Maximus Prime here. Yes. The slaves built everything and no white people worked in those mines etc or railway lines. That is a falsehood anyway. Again, the more important point is that slave किसके पास नहीं था? आज भी लीबिया के पास स्लेव है, पाकिस्तान के पास स्लेव है. तो हिना रब्बानी खार के खुद के फार्म हाउस में स्लेव है, क्या उखाड़ लिया? Okay, notice that if they did not have slavery, they would have paid white people to do that. Or get indentured servitude laborers from other places. Caribbean countries में slavery नहीं था, Indian slaves तो वहाँ पे भी थे. मॉरिशस में indentured servitude वाले लोग ही जाके वहाँ का हिंदू कम्युनिटी बनाए हैं. अफ्रीका में indentured servitude था इंडियंस का. ये सब देश ने क्या उखाड़ लिया? वहाँ पे that was not built on the backs of Indians. कुछ नहीं कर पाए, क्यों? Because they had capitalism. Because USA has capitalism, other places don't have capitalism. आज भी अफ्रीका गड्ढे में है, इंडिया में गड्ढे में क्यों नहीं है? Because India has capitalism, Africa doesn't.
Vector, Steve Jobs was able to make a personal computer that you could sell in the market. Apple computer, the one I'm using. And then the marketing, the development, and so on was mostly transferred to the private sector. Now, it's more complex than this. So IBM, for example, after learning.
No. I understand that you are pointing out that slaves did do something. I'm saying yes, slaves obviously did something. नहीं तो slave बना के लेके क्यों गए थे? Yes, that is true. But USA is built on the backs of slavery is a completely wrong statement to make, because other countries which had slavery, why couldn't they build something on the backs of their slavery? That is what I'm asking. Therefore, slavery is not even a big factor here.
How to switch from punch cards to modern computers. They learned that mostly in labs like the one I was working in at MIT, but they did advance to that point. Then they were able to develop their own computer in the early 60s, stretch computer, fastest one around. Nobody could buy it. It was way too expensive. So it went to the public sector. It was bought by Los Alamos. And then it was able to develop further. And so it continued. Same with the internet, which was being developed right where it was, in fact, in the late 50s, early 60s. Public funding. After about.
What am I supposed to conclude from here? Anything other than white supremacism at work? He thinks public funding और किसी चीज़ का और किसी जगह में नहीं होता है, और होता भी है तो वो इतने चूतिए हैं कि वो कुछ कर नहीं पाते हैं. He is saying some things that happened in USA and he's crediting those things for the innovation and capitalism. Whereas those exact same things happen in all other countries, even in India, even until 1991. तो यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं हुआ? क्योंकि हम घोड़े चमड़ी वाले नहीं हैं. That's the only logical argument remaining.
30 years, 1995 or so, it was essentially handed over to private power, largely privatized. That's where a lot of the economy develops. It goes way back to the early 19th century. 19th century, the main development in the country was railroads. That was the huge economic development. They were much too complicated and extensive for private capital to deal with them. So it was handed over to the Army Corps of Engineers.
हाँ क्यों? अच्छा अभी क्या बोला कि a lot of economic prosperity and development happened then when it was handed over to the private companies or to the Army Corps of Engineers. बाकी समय क्या बोलेंगे ये लोग? America was built on the backs of slavery. See?
Yeah, mass production. It's called the American way of manufacturing, which astonished the world. Late 19th century. Quality control, replaceable parts.
How did quality control ये सब गवर्नमेंट फंडिंग से होता है? गवर्नमेंट को कुछ आता जाता है क्वालिटी का? क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट नेवर गोज आउट ऑफ बिजनेस. प्राइवेट कंपनीज go out of business if they are allowed to go out of business. Unless they are corrupt and have friendship with the government, then they won't be allowed to go out of business. A company cares about quality control, which is being translated in the world as American quality control. That is because of their companies caring about quality control. And why do they care about quality control? Because otherwise they'll go out of business. That is what free market is. That is what capitalism is, which he won't give credit to.
Taylorism in industry, all of this, which made things much more efficient. It was mostly developed in government armories and picked up and used by private capital. Now, I'm drawing the lines too sharply. You look at the whole thing, complicated story, there's all kinds of interaction. But this is a large part of economic history, all the way through. That's why we always have state capitalism, along with protection of the masters from market ravages. They don't want to face them. The reason we...
Not that everyone has that protection. Again, a straw man. He's saying that everyone has that protection and no one faces any consequences. He's saying that no company ever goes out of business. This is what Noam Chomsky is basically saying here. Again, worst possible scenario को बाकी सब पे थोप रहा है. ठीक है, imposition हो रहा है. पेट्रियटिज्म का बात करो, ये नाजिज्म लेके आएगा. ठीक है, एनार्को कैपिटलिज्म का बात करो, ये गवर्नमेंट और बिगेस्ट बिजनेस का करप्शन का बात लेके आएगा. अब बोल रहा है कि कैपिटलिज्म नाम का कुछ चीज़ ही नहीं है. इट्स ऑल स्टेट कंट्रोल्ड एनीवे एंड स्टेट्स नेवर, द गवर्नमेंट, द पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम नेवर allows businesses to fail. And where do you see that? Only the biggest businesses are so big that they are able to manipulate politicians and therefore they don't go out of business. बाकी 99% businesses का क्या होता है? सबसे ज़्यादा तो यूएसए में ही होता है. Because there's a creative destruction system going on. It's so easy to fail in a business in California. Do you know that? What the BJP government did, one of their biggest achievements was that opening a new business or setting up a factory has become very much easier compared to what was before. What our still our weakness is how difficult it is to close down a business in India because of our socialist hangover. That नहीं workers का क्या हो जाएगा, गरीब लोगों को खाना नहीं मिल रहा है, etc. All those slogans which mean nothing. Unless you make it easy for people to close down a business, how will they create the next factory? See, Bengal is a hub of ghost jute mills. So many factories are just lined up, closed down, because they are not allowed to be fully closed down and create a new factory. All of those entrepreneurs could have made some other product and created a different factory and hired those same people. नहीं, जूट ही बनाना है हमको. हमने एक बार जूट बनाना सीख लिया, अब पूरा जिंदगी सिर्फ जूट ही बनाएंगे. That is the argument of those laborers. And so they remain jobless for the rest of their lives. That is the argument CPIM used to give when there's a famous place called Bokhali in South West Bengal. It's a sea beach. In order to go there, you have to cross a sea beach. Only I think this year or last year, finally a bridge came up. Even though Bokhali is used to be the second most popular beach in the entire state, everyone has to cross that river on a ferry or on a boat. Why? Because the boatmen of that river had the river is called Hatania Duania. They had the union which said that no, हमारे प्रोफेशन का क्या होगा. अरे भाई, आज तक अगर वो ब्रिज होता आज से 10-20 साल पहले, Bokhali could have been turned into a big tourism hub. You all could have quit your boating job and opened up other businesses. They won't do that. Everyone would have been better off. They would have been more prosperous. लेकिन उसको बोट ही चलाना है, and therefore they are not going to close down their business. And so what Sanjeev Sanyal keeps talking about, that insolvency and bankruptcy code, which has been a significant improvement in closing down a business, is a great thing in India today. And that's why one entrepreneur, if he fails in one business or fails in one particular product, he can change his business or change into a different field in the market completely, and therefore create new opportunities. Instead, what used to happen is that he used to spend the rest of his 30-40 years of his life apologizing and looking for ways to close down the company, but no one would allow him to close down the company क्योंकि वर्कर का क्या होगा भाई.
We have huge financial institutions. It is because the government insures them and allows
I don't
them.
disagree with that. That's the part with crony capitalism. I'm not with that. When the
But
big
that's-
banks got bailed out and they
There, Patrick Bet-David says, I'm not with crony capitalists. I don't want big banks to get bailed out. वो सिर्फ कर रहे हो तुम, और वो करके तुम बाकी कैपिटलिज्म को क्यों गाली दे रहे हो?
got the checks in 08 by Barack Obama or Bush or folks back in the day when Reagan bailed out. I'm not the one that's sitting here saying let's bail some of these companies out, because in my opinion, Professor, I don't think monopoly exists without the help of the government. I don't think a monopoly
Quite
exists.
the opposite. As soon as you start deregulating, it moves towards monopolization. With the
Okay, deregulation जब होता है तब मोनोपोली होता है. That's his argument, even though he has never run a business in his life. Okay, remember, वो caveat थोड़ा चाहिए, ठीक है. सब academics का opinion हर चीज़ में गलत नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. But in this case, remember, Karl Marx never ran a business. Hegel never ran a business as far as I know. Noam Chomsky has never run a business. But he knows that business चलाने में government regulation जब हट जाएगा तभी मोनोपोली हो जाएगा. Okay. That happens in some cases, like UFC. But that's based on competence. सबको देखना है UFC. क्या करे? UFC का प्रेसिडेंट डेना वाइट क्या करेगा अगर लोग बोले कि नहीं मुझे सिर्फ UFC के फाइटर्स को ही देखना है, राइजिंग फाइजिंग वन चैंपियनशिप नहीं देखना है, तो उसमें डेना वाइट का क्या दोष है? People want that company's fighters to only fight. But there are corrupt collusions as well, corrupt monopolies as well. I can't take names obviously, but in a state there is a significant production house which is the biggest production house in that state, and they control every actor, actress, director, production, web series life. They used to not let any other production houses come up, and now when they do allow that, they are still in charge of the distributorship of those films, as well as they own a lot of theaters all across the state as well. And they were about to get caught, but magically on the day when they were about to get caught by the state, that state's investigation agency, a magical phone came in to the officers who were searching their offices for all illegalities, and someone over the phone said that no, come out of that place. And since then that production house has been the biggest production house of that state. Okay, that's state induced monopoly. That is not the case with UFC.
We've
I
seen
agree.
it. We've seen it. That's
I
the
agree.
result. That's the result of handing things over to the market.
That's the result of
fish.
politicians being for sale, because their campaigns, they need money to raise campaigns, so I can go buy them because they're for sale, and they help me create a monopoly because I got a couple people in my pocket. That's been going on for a while. There's a reason why a lot of these bigger companies start off in different cities as headquarters. As they get bigger, they put an office right in DC, because I got to go control some of the regulation and laws to not allow the other smaller.
डीसी में क्यों ऑफिस चाहिए? दिल्ली में क्यों ऑफिस चाहिए? वहाँ के नेता लोगों को खिलाना है.
Got to compete with me long term.
You're looking at footnotes. The main thing is that when you begin to deregulate and hand things over to the market, there's a tendency, strong tendency, to move towards monopolization as the bigger fish eat the little.
अरे टेंडेंसी किस बिना पे? टेंडेंसी ये बेसिस पे होता है. लोगों को चाहिए होता है ना वो कंपनी का प्रोडक्ट. ये वो एक्नॉलेज नहीं करेगा.
Strong tendency to move.
Okay, I'll end this live stream today. ये और भी बहुत नहीं तो लंबा होगा, किसी और दिन ये करेंगे. Thomas Sowell has a great quote for these intellectuals. He calls them third-party intellectuals with with no cost. अरे मैं भूल गया. With people who pay no cost of being wrong. People who pay no price for being wrong. They are the third-party intellectuals who pay no price for being wrong, and see how that is the case all across the world in terms of leftist politics. Noam Chomsky will never pay the price for being wrong on India. He will never pay the price for being wrong on USA's economics. He will never be kicked out of USA for criticizing USA. He will stay in USA. He will not go to Saudi Arabia. And he will not say that USA is the greatest country on earth. He will say India is wrong in handling Kashmir, but he won't come and settle down in Kashmir. Okay. The intellectuals who criticize Buddhadev Bhattacharya for bringing in the Tata factory, they have not paid any price for being wrong. They are still on public funded salary. They still have their tenure. They still go around the country or the entire world giving speeches on how oppressive Hinduism is or Hindu nationalism is. But those people had supported Mamata Banerjee when she kicked out the Tata factory. They did not pay a price for being wrong. The entire state paid the price for being wrong. For them being wrong. Okay. Amritanshu Jha is saying also some businesses are inherently monopolistic. For example, most people don't have time to watch 5 different leagues. Right. तो इसमें डेना वाइट का दोष तो नहीं है.
जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनी